Good evening. You are listening live to Xtreme TV. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to continue our season one review of the original TV show, Mission Impossible, episodes 11 and 12 tonight, or what we're going to be talking about. A ghost story for the Halloween time. Who knew? With me from the also Central Florida area, I have the young 20-something Professor Pixel. And Pixel, the timing couldn't be better, where we're going to be talking about a haunted house when we get Halloween coming up next week too. And who would have thunk it? It's gonna be in the Mission Impossible episode. And then we get, for those older listeners that appreciate some of the classic stuff when you're younger, this name might not mean anything to you, but we have in episode 12, we've got the great Lloyd Bridges as this like narcotics drug lord in it too. And I'll just start off by saying this. I don't know if there's a higher cheese level in these two episodes for me a little bit, or maybe I'm just starting to get used to it because we're halfway through season one of the original show. And I've mentioned it before how I love how each person gets a little bit of a chance to shine as a part of the team. But I didn't know what happened in the last two episodes behind the scenes of why there's only a couple of the members in there. I know that not everybody shows up in every episode, but we get kind of a continuation of that in here because we get no Cinnamon and her wonderful outfit that I love to talk about too, and we don't get Willie. So we get here a haunted house kind of episode where the scientist is like trying to defect because her late husband's telling her to. I mean, I don't know if this is like a Scooby Doo kind of thing or what, but I started thinking of all the Halloween specials from that TV show Psych. They'd be goofy and there'd be a murder. What did you think about this first episode?
Um,
Uh-oh.
well, all I can really say is the bees, the bees.
And you mean what
That's what I'm.
exactly with that reference?
I don't know what I was going for. I was just thinking about the multiple shot at bees because they just kept going to them, and obviously they play a role later in the episode. I wasn't expecting a Halloween episode. Who knew? The weird thing was that through half the episode, you're supposed to be treating the woman they have there in place of Cinnamon. She's supposed to be basically a spiritualist, but not a spiritualist. She's acting like a spiritualist, but she pretends to be taken over in front of the guys. Or maybe it's not pretend. Maybe she gave her best performance, but they like use it to throw a monkey wrench. He's still alive. Oh, he was still alive. And then you have the dog, which I know you love the dog.
I have a soft spot for dogs. Obviously, I'm going to talk about them a lot when we after this when we go 7 o'clock Eastern live tonight, October 22nd here on the Xtreme Movie Show. When we talk about Dan Curtis's production of 1974, was it Dracula starring Jack Palance? Because hell yeah, there's some dogs in there. But what got me thinking about this particular episode, just taking a step back, was not that hey they only had a couple people for the episode. Maybe people were out injured or pregnant or sick or things happen. All right, when you're filming week to week. I thought to myself, God, you have watched all 1,225 episodes of the original Dark Shadows. You and I have covered everything of Twin Peaks and the movies, and of course with the Dark Shadows revival, we've mentioned that too. So we know Gothic a little bit, and we definitely talked that here on the Xtreme Movie Show, and of course our subset here that we have tonight, Xtreme TV. But it made me wonder. Obviously, with movies like The House on a Haunted Hill, we know that haunted houses are a thing. But it made me wonder, gosh, this show's in the mid 60s. I'm trying to wrap my head around when did haunted houses become a thing that TV would exploit? Because certainly by the 70s they were there. And we saw them in Kolchak, the Night Stalker. We did all those episodes too a few years ago here on Xtreme TV. And it reminded me of, well, this show did something like this earlier, right? It wasn't just a campy gothic kind of monster of the week thing like Kolchak was with a great lead guy. This is a team of people that when you don't have all four, it's concerning to me how their chemistry is going to come across because, like I said before, Willie, the know-it-all guy, it's like, come on, man. You got your head in a paper bag? Because I want you to have some personality. I know it's there. I know you're the smarty pants, but Cinnamon, it's too easy for her to kind of do some girly thing and captivate somebody with, batting her eyelashes and get the information needed for what's going on. Because obviously she's not sleeping with anybody in this episode. But when we got to a haunted house, I went, really? After all this commie stuff, after all this stuff we've been doing with, we got to transport this guy here. We got drug lords on mysterious islands that are going to be communist dictators, so we can't have that. So you got to retrieve the tape and do this and that. We're in a haunted house. So I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, so that's not their fault, I guess. That's more mine as a watcher, what I've been trained to do. But again, I found it a little bit odd that we only had a couple characters in here this time too. Not that it was
What?
a bad episode, but I don't know if anybody's gonna sit there and go, you remember that one episode of Mission Impossible where they're in the haunted house with the psychic type person? It's just sort of there to me.
What did I say last week? They gotta find new ways to keep it fresh. I think that there's a little bit of the fighting the commie stuff though, because they don't want her to go. They don't want her to defect past the Iron Curtain because her dead husband might be telling her to, the ghost of her dead husband.
Yeah, but and not to harp on it too much, but just to emphasize it a little bit, the one thing that's really surprised me the most about Mission Impossible so far here in season 1 is the really, really strong. We're going to do anything we can as a team to get rid of communism, no matter where it's happening or what's going on, whether that's the old USSR behind the Iron Curtain, which is like that, or these small dictatorships popping up around the world. You could argue whether you believe in communism or capitalism and all that stuff. That's not what the show is about, but it's something that's very apparent with this show that I'm not saying they glamorize it, in Michael Mann with Miami Vice in the 80s, it was about cocaine and drug lords and all that. And you could argue on a bigger scale, the inefficiency of the United States government to deal with it effectively, and also is responsible for propagating it. And I'm not saying that happens here, but I could definitely see some of the seeds of some of the stuff that we'd get in the 70s and 80s with the cynicism against American government, because again, elite special agents, you don't normally get this. If you got in an action show like the Wild Wild West, it was more of an adventure fun thing, right? Here I still feel like they're trying to be very serious about everything, and I don't have a problem with that. I like that, but the teamwork thing obviously to me is so far where they shine, and when you get a couple of people missing, it's just not quite the same to me. So I don't want to crap on these 2 episodes or whatever, the ones before that only had a few, but I just don't know if that's going to be a trend, because by far, and I'll say it again, Cinnamon's an obvious standout, but Roland, he's the man. Everybody else is just secondary to me. He's that good with what he does, and it's the coolest, funnest stuff out of everybody, I think. That's just how I feel about it. And despite liking haunted house stuff and all that, I will say this though, I kind of like this episode, maybe because it's the Halloween spirit I'm in right now this time of the year. I kind of liked it a little bit more than the next one here that we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But before we get to that episode, I just want to see if you had anything else you wanted to say about this one.
That bee death was pretty brutal, man.
Now everybody shits on Nick Cage for the bee scene from The Wicker Man reimaging, I guess you would call it, because obviously it's not the Christopher Lee original one. It's got Edward Woodard in there, which that is a classic. I like the tone that was in that one. Here, this Mission Impossible episodes, they still have the same tone. They just feel different to me. So I don't know. Sometimes you get an episode or two like this, and that's just what you have to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one is pretty much the same way. I'm not going to lie. I didn't care.
What do you mean?
It wasn't, again, none of these aren't bad episodes.
Right.
They aren't. It wasn't like where we had gotten to in The Prisoner, where it was like, oh dear God, please, let's get to the end.
Yeah.
We get it. You're not a number. You're a free man. No. But here, but here they are trying to get this guy to cross the border without kidnapping him. Yeah. Honestly, I wish they had just kidnapped it and called it an early episode.
Yeah.
It would have been more fun if they had kidnapped him and they had to smuggle him out of the country, and we had watched them as he's trying to fight his way out of a body bag.
Yeah, and I got to bring up Lloyd Bridges in here because obviously you know him from Airplane and other stuff too. He is rocking this ascot kind of funky thing with a like a cream colored pantsuit and like a, I don't know if that's gray or bluish kind of jacket that he was wearing. But as soon as I saw him, I was like, Lloyd Bridges. And Cinnamon, she's got like this kind of tennis outfit that's almost like a tennis skirt. It's very classy and it's like, oh, okay, we got something goofy to talk about in terms of culture, whatever. Because I told you one thing I do like here is you see in a lot of 60s TVs, we can talk about the scenes that they're in where we can see the cars in the background. Some of the places that don't exist are like old Coca-Cola signs and stuff. Here, a lot of people wear suits, and the suits are tailored with a half-inch on each man's sleeve without going over the wrist, which always bugs the shit out of me, even on James Bond suits. But even though this has got a lot of interior work that we somehow go, oh, I think I saw this in the same episode last week, hint, hint, hint. Seeing Lloyd Bridges at a younger age, I'm going, oh my God, it's like I almost lose it and can't break the fact that I've seen him in so many other things too. But again, back in the 60s, here we go. But yeah, Cinnamon, I like her ability to use her feminine side. And I don't mean like I'm spreading my legs, tell me what I need to know, over the top sexuality. She has to be coy, but it has to be obvious to you as a viewer that she's going down that path to get the information that she needs. I don't think this is going to be a show where eventually it's going to be, she's got PTSD because she's too busy tricking men or whatever. It's not that kind of a show, right? Which I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it just is what we're dealing with here. All I know is there's a lot of episodes in this particular episode that I just go, I think they shot it during the day, but they put that friggin' blue filter on order to make it look like it's at night. That always bugged the shit out of me. If you're going to film at night, film at night. Otherwise, I go, okay, is this like 6 in the morning, 6 o'clock at night? I can't tell what's going on. I don't care. Let me see Cinnamon wearing her outfit, sitting here just laying around on the suit talking to Lloyd Bridges. That's what the episode was for me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. It's a wee bit frustrating because we've had so many highs, but we have to accept. I say this about especially like the comic book industry. Nowadays, a book that is okay is a good thing. And this is an okay episode. This should be a good thing. We have so many great ones. We have to accept a good one every now and again. It was all right. There's nothing bad about it. It's just we weren't as invested.
Yeah, and I think too early on I mentioned it was interesting when we were getting introduced to the characters, and they'd have some of the same ones in each of the episodes that we would sit there and say, hey, I'm a little more emotionally invested in this person because maybe they do something I think is cool or I like, or how they handle this situation, or maybe somebody like Willie will grow out of a shell a little bit later because of the nature of what he does, and maybe we'll grow more fond of him. Of course, I mentioned too that Peter Graves from the University of Minnesota doesn't start, I think, until next season, season 2. And everyone always goes, oh, yeah, Mission Impossible with Peter Graves. Well, Peter Graves is also in the reboot reimaging from the 80s. People remember that, but they don't realize he was not in his first season. So I thought to myself, well, gosh, does anybody really remember the first season? And that was one of our deciding moments on what to go ahead and talk about here, because at the time Martin Landau, who's playing Roland, he was known, I think, in North and by Northwest and maybe a few other things too, but this was his coming out party. And so can he carry an entire episode on his own? Absolutely. You see that here in this one too. When you have your guest star of the week like a Lloyd Bridges or some other person there too, that's kind of cool, because depending on who it is and what they do with that person, right, we're going, okay, that's cool. But I just, to me, I pop whenever I go, okay, how is the mission briefing thing gonna be this week? How are they gonna do it differently? Is somebody gonna tell them a secret code or phrase? Is it gonna have to go in there and pull out some device? Is it gonna be on the public phone? I like that because it should be different each time. And so far, for the most part, it's been hits. Not all of them, but I'm getting to that point now where I'm like, yeah, this is just the Saturday night special that it was when it first started, where it's just, okay, this is our pseudo action adventure of the week. And I will say this. I know that a lot of current television shows we've talked about, whether it's Netflix or Amazon or whoever streaming service, that it seems like, and you've mentioned this too on the Geeky Puppet Show with some of the readings you do and reviews of comics, that people and writers in general seem to be more interested in world building and putting things out there that might connect to other things rather than establishing characters and getting on with it. It is refreshing that even though these 2 episodes are just sort of kind of there and we're halfway through the first season, you go, you know what? For a Saturday night time slot show, they knew what their template was going to be. They knew how they were going to go about doing it, and they knew that from episode 1. And it's true. So for them being that tight with it, even though they recycled some of the same set pieces, and it seems like we see a lot of like road signs too. I don't know why, like "Don't cross here," "Danger," "Policia," on the cars or whatever. Right? It's like the same 3 cars being reused. They just repaint them. It's still effective for storytelling. When we get a shitty car chase with a bad, backdrop effect at the end, which I don't like.
I will say, I did enjoy. It was over the top, but I did enjoy the fake out. This is the police. And then them shooting him. That was great.
All right, any other final episode thoughts on these 2 episodes?
Sometimes it's just going to be okay, and that's okay.
Yeah, not everything is a home run. Some things are going to be singles. These are there. I did not actively hate them or dislike them. Would I watch them again? Only if this ever becomes a podcast. But at that point, we'd have a lot more meat to dive into when it comes to it, because one of the things I've been looking for, which I've not seen yet halfway through, is again how these characters grow and develop. Right now it's been the same character pretty much. The only thing that's different is their situation. So I'm not seeing any growth. I'm not saying you have to, but that's very apparent with what they're doing, that you could almost watch this entire 12 episodes out of order. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's just it's a lot of fun right now, and hopefully we get to dig in a little more soon. But I'm okay with what we have going right now.
Yeah, and I'll mention to anybody that's obviously listening right now, because we get some people that tune to this after our other ones, is that obviously if you go back to episode and listen to them in order, you'll see about some of the themes that we've talked about building rather than just the individual episodes. So if there's some comments we're making that you're like, well, what does that reference? Well, when we talk about the episodes as they go in order, and we reference back to some of the old themes or things that come up and what we liked and all that too. And that's kind of what we do here on Xtreme TV as well as the Xtreme movie show. So Mission Impossible, we're tackling you. We're halfway through. We're going to kick your ass and finish you up and see, do you wimp out? Do you stay the same? If it stays the same, I gotta say this, Pixel, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That if it stays this consistent all the way through, I mean, you can go, well, it's reliable, and that's sometimes all you really need to have for Saturday night entertainment, which is what this show meant to be, as well as getting rid of a bunch of commies along the way. All right, guys, there you have it. Mission Impossible Season 1, Episodes 11 and 12. Shortly at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll be on our other stream here on the Xtreme Movie Show. We're going to be going live to cover the 1974 Dan Curtis version of Dracula starring Jack Palance and about 100 German Shepherds. Am I right? What a great opening scene. I'm looking forward to covering that with you guys here with Pixel and RDV. It's going to be with me on Tuesday night. So I'll see you guys then. Have a good night. And as always, stay extreme. Ed, I'll see you over there.
Farewell.